They don't raise their voice, they don't throw punches, they don't even look like enemies, but they're trying to destroy you, and most of the time you don't even realize it. Not until it's too late. Welcome back. To those who've been here before, you already know this channel isn't for surface-level advice, and if you're new, hit subscribe now and turn on that notification bell, because what we're about to discuss, most people never hear, not in school, not from their friends, not even from their therapists. But once you hear it, you'll never unsee it again. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt watched? Not in a paranoid way, not tinfoil hat, not some made-up fear, but the kind of feeling that crawls under your skin, where someone somewhere is just waiting for you to slip. Someone who wants your smile erased, your peace disturbed, your progress undone. Maybe they were polite. Maybe they were quiet. Maybe they even helped you. But deep down, you felt it. They didn't just hate you. They wanted to erase you. Erase your name, your reputation, your sanity. 7 signs. A person doesn't just hate you, they want to destroy you. There's something few people will tell you. When someone hates you, they usually stay visible. They curse, they argue, they show their hand. But when someone wants to destroy you, they disappear into the shadows. They don't just want you gone. They want it to look like you did it to yourself. This video is about them. The ones who smile to your face but sharpen knives when you leave the room. The ones who aren't satisfied watching you fail. They want to orchestrate it. They want to own your fall, step by step, quietly, efficiently. And if you're not careful, you'll help them do it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But what if? What if your enemy doesn't want revenge? What if they want annihilation? What if your peace is their trigger? What if your progress is their rage? I'm going to walk you through 7 unmistakable signs that someone around you isn't just bitter, isn't just angry, they want to destroy you. This isn't fear-mongering, this is pattern recognition, and once you understand these patterns, you'll know how to protect yourself. Stoically, powerfully, without ever losing your mind or your integrity. Because the moment you let your guard down, the moment you stop listening to that little voice inside that says, "Something's wrong," is the moment they move in, quietly, carefully, until the damage is done, and all that's left is the question, how didn't I see it coming? In this video, we're going deep, not just into the signs, but into the ancient Stoic wisdom that helps you survive it. Not just survive, but thrive in silence, outlast in calm, rise without revenge. Because this isn't a video about vengeance, it's about vision. It's about reclaiming your clarity in a world full of masked destruction. It's about waking up before you're the next victim of a silent enemy. So stay with me. Grab something to take notes, turn off your notifications. Yes, all of them. Because for the next 2 hours, we're going somewhere people are too afraid to go. And once we're done, you'll never look at certain people the same way again. Let's begin. Let's begin with the first one. The reputation killer. The destroyer who doesn't confront you directly, but attacks when you're not in the room. Sign number 1 is coming next. Stay focused. This isn't just theory, this is survival. Sign number 1. They attack your reputation behind closed doors. There's a kind of violence that doesn't leave bruises. It doesn't break bones. It doesn't raise voices. It simply rewrites how people see you. It starts quietly, a whisper here, a shrug there, a question asked innocently. Do you trust her with that kind of responsibility? He seems off lately, doesn't he? And just like that, a seed is planted. And if you don't catch it early, that seed becomes a forest. a place where your name becomes the subject of stories, none of which you wrote, none of which are true. This is sign number 1. You're not just being disliked, you're being redefined, not by your mistakes, but by someone else's version of them. Epictetus once said, "If someone tries to harm your character, let your actions speak louder than their words." But the truth, when you're under a whisper campaign, your actions can't always be heard over the noise. Let me show you what this looks like. A man named Caleb worked at a consulting firm, hard-working, quiet, never late. But one day, his project lead started checking in with colleagues behind his back, asking questions. Do you feel he's really contributing? Has he been all right mentally? You know, I've heard he struggles with deadlines. By the time Caleb noticed, the room had changed. People hesitated before talking to him. They double-checked his numbers. He was no longer the guy you asked for help. He was the guy people watched, just in case. He hadn't failed. He hadn't made a mistake. But someone else was writing his failure for him, one quiet sentence at a time. That's what makes this kind of sabotage so dangerous. It doesn't come with alarms. It comes with silence. It comes with people you thought were neutral, suddenly unsure of you, not because of what you did, but because of what they heard. That's not just hate, that's strategic destruction, and it's terrifyingly effective. Let's be clear, a person who simply hates you will challenge you directly. They'll argue, they'll yell, they'll block you. But someone who wants to destroy you will never raise their voice. They'll lower it, so it slips past defenses, so it sounds reasonable. This is called reputation poisoning, and it's one of the oldest strategies in human history, because once someone controls your reputation, they don't need to destroy you personally. Everyone else will do it for them. Your invitations disappear. Your voice is treated with doubt. Your wins become luck. Your mistakes become proof. So, what does Stoicism say about this? Stoicism doesn't teach us to scream the truth louder. It teaches us to live the truth better, to let our character outlast the lie. Because in a whisper campaign, every reaction becomes a tool for the attacker. Defend yourself too strongly? You look guilty. Stay silent? You look complicit. Explain yourself? You look insecure. That's why the Stoics taught something radical. Do not chase every false narrative. Control your integrity, not your image. Epictetus told us, if evil is spoken of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's a lie, laugh at it. But in modern times, we don't laugh. We panic. We go on Instagram stories. We write paragraphs in group chats. We scream into the void, trying to win people back. But here's the truth. You don't need to win people back. You need to win yourself back. Because if you lose yourself trying to prove something, they've already won. So what do? You protect your peace. You double down on discipline. You say less and build more. Because when your reputation is being distorted, your consistency becomes the only antidote. Not reactions, not gossip, not clapbacks. Consistency. Let them talk. You keep building. Let them assume. You keep showing up. Let them whisper. You walk in silence, because people who walk in silence don't need to explain their power. Remember this. You were not born to please the crowd. You were born to build something stronger than opinion. You were born to build truth, and truth doesn't scream. It endures. That's the first sign. Someone's rewriting your name behind closed doors, and the Stoic answer is to make your name unshakable. Sign number 2 is even more insidious. They don't just talk about you, they undermine your progress in small, invisible ways until everything you build starts falling apart. We go deeper. Next. Sign number 2, they copy you to erase you. There's a kind of betrayal that wears a smile, that claps when you succeed, and then quietly rewrites your success into their own blueprint. It's not sabotage, it's replication. They don't hate you. Not at first. They admire you, but not in a way that lifts, in a way that consumes. Sign number 2, they copy you. Not to compliment you, but to replace you. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And the truth is, the people watching you closely aren't always learning, some are cloning. At first it seems harmless. They buy the same clothes, pick up your vocabulary, like the same music. You think, wow, we're becoming close. But then they start showing up before you, talking louder, telling your stories, becoming louder versions of your quieter identity. This is the erasure tactic. They don't just want to be inspired by you, they want to be you, but better, more liked, more accepted. They want to wear your skin while you fade into the background, until the room only has space for one of you, and they plan to make sure it's them. Let me show you what this looks like in the real world. There was a woman named Amara, a talented graphic designer, quiet, precise. Her style was distinct, bold color blocks, clean white space, elegant use of serif fonts. She worked freelance and had built a solid online presence. One day, a peer, let's call her Riley, reached out. "Love your work, just want to learn from you." They began collaborating. Amara shared her resources, her mood boards, her font packs, her color strategies. It felt like mentorship. But weeks later, Riley's work started looking eerily familiar. Same style, same layout, same catchphrases in her captions. Then, clients started dropping Amara. When she followed up, they said, "Oh, we thought you weren't available." Riley said she took over your niche. She wasn't just being copied, she was being phased out. Here's the sinister part. Riley never attacked Amara, never slandered her, never badmouthed her. She just replaced her. One copied color, one stolen caption, one new client at a time. And this happens more than we admit. Someone copies your sense of humor, your style, your voice, and somehow they get credit for what you had to bleed for. You do the hard internal work, they perform it louder, and suddenly they're seen as the real deal, and you as the ghost they outgrew. Now, what would a Stoic say to that? Would Marcus Aurelius beg for originality? Would Seneca start defending his intellectual property? No, the Stoic doesn't compete with the copy, because the Stoic knows who they are. Their worth isn't borrowed, it's embodied. You see, people can copy your style. They can copy your words, but they cannot copy your substance, because substance is built in silence, through pain, through practice, through 100 failures they never saw. Stoicism teaches you this. You're not in competition with a copy, you are in alignment with your nature. Let them mimic, let them perform, let them build their personality on your bones. It's still your bones. They'll never know the blood that built it. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. They may copy the gem, but they haven't survived the friction, so eventually they crack, because they've built the image of resilience, not the reality." So what do? You stop chasing originality, and you start living authenticity, not for attention, but for alignment. Because a Stoic doesn't ask, why are they copying me? A Stoic asks, am I still grounded in who I am? Because if you are, they can take your clothes, your quotes, even your clients, but they cannot take your essence. In time, the copy burns out, but the original evolves, because you're not performing identity, you're living it. So let them imitate, you keep becoming. Let them echo, you keep speaking from source. Let them study you, you stay unshakably you. Sign number 2 is not loud, it feels like flattery, until it's too late, until you realize They weren't admiring you, they were absorbing you. So be mindful when someone starts to become you. Ask yourself, are you still becoming more than them? And now, we move to the third sign. When imitation fails, they go for destabilization. They attack not what you do, but what you believe, what you value, who you are. Sign number 3. They try to isolate you socially. It starts slowly. A missed call, a gathering you weren't told about, a friend who suddenly feels cold. You're not paranoid, you're being isolated, and the worst part is, you don't know why. They don't just want you out of the picture, they want you alone in the dark, not with a fight, but with whispers. Sign number 3. They try to isolate you socially. You think enemies are loud, but the dangerous ones, the truly destructive ones, they're strategic. They don't swing at your face, they pull away your circle. And this is how they do it. They smile to your friends and plant seeds, not accusations, just doubt. They don't destroy your relationships, they erode them, in layers, in silence. Divide and conquer. That's the oldest play in the book, because once you're alone, you're vulnerable. Your voice is easier to dismiss, and no one is left to remind the world who you really are. This tactic works best when you're already emotionally tired, when life is already throwing punches, and now the people who should hold you up just watch you fall. And you ask yourself, did I do something wrong? No, you're being targeted. You see, people who want to destroy you don't always scream your name. Sometimes they whisper it in the wrong ears. Seneca said, associate with those who improve you. But what happens when they remove you from those who uplifted you? You'll notice subtle signs. You walk into a room and energy shifts. People who once laughed with you now talk around you. Your name gets left off group chats. Plans change last minute. And the worst part, they make you feel like you're the problem, like you're imagining it. This is psychological warfare at its most elegant, because when someone isolates you socially, they're not just hurting your friendships, they're attacking your sense of belonging. You start questioning your worth, not because you've done wrong, but because you've been cut out of every space that once reflected your value. So what does the Stoic do? Does he beg for the room back? Does she try to win people over? No. A Stoic doesn't chase lost tribes. A Stoic watches carefully to see who remains when the noise dies. Marcus Aurelius said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So react with grace, with stillness, with truth." If someone can be turned against you by a whisper, they were never for you in the first place. Instead of fighting to stay included, focus on cultivating the few who are rooted. The friend who checks in privately, the colleague who doesn't flinch when others turn, the sibling who reminds you of your goodness even when the world forgets. Because here's the truth, some people will leave you because it's convenient, others will stay because it's right. A Stoic doesn't measure their worth by the size of the crowd, but by the depth of the connection. You were never meant to belong everywhere. You were meant to stand firm somewhere. And when someone tries to isolate you, that's the moment you find out who's real, who's watching, who believes in you without needing convincing. And let them go. Let the weak ones drift. Because if someone needs to destroy your relationships to feel powerful, they were always beneath your level of integrity. You don't need a stadium. You need a few good men, a few good women, people who see you, even when everyone else looks away. Isolation is painful, but it's also clarifying, because when the room empties, you finally hear your own voice again, and that's the voice that matters most. So remember, when they try to isolate you, let them, because what they're really doing is removing the noise, leaving behind the truth. Sign number 3 isn't about rejection, it's about revelation. You're not being excluded, you're being refined. Next, we go deeper, because when they can't erase you, They attack your sanity. Sign number 4, they provoke you to destroy yourself. This is where the game gets cruel, because they've whispered behind you, they've copied you, they've turned your world cold, and yet you're still standing. So they shift strategies. They stop trying to take you down quietly and start setting traps, not with rope, but with your own emotions. Sign number 4, they provoke you to destroy yourself. Not through violence, not through gossip, but through calculated chaos. They manufacture conflict, then hand you the match. They gaslight you, tell you you're overreacting, blame you for things they did, laugh at your boundaries, bait you in public, push every bruise you've hidden, until one day you snap. And when you finally break, when you scream, when you cry, when you curse them out, they step back and say, "See, I told you they were unstable." You think you're finally fighting back, but they wanted this reaction. They needed it, so they could justify your destruction in the eyes of others and in your own mind. Marcus Aurelius said, "You always own the option of having no opinion." That's not detachment, that's control, that's power. Because the moment you take the bait, you're no longer the target. You've become your own assassin. They sit back and watch you burn yourself down. Let me tell you what's really happening here. This is psychological warfare, and it's one of the oldest tactics in history. If I can't break you, I'll get you to break yourself. It happens in workplaces. You get provoked, cornered, blamed for things out of your control until HR finally sees you as the problem. It happens in relationships, where you're made to question everything, where your anger becomes the villain, even though it was born out of their constant cruelty. And it happens online, where they twist your words, distort your image, wait for a single reaction, and then amplify it to the world. And at that point, they don't even need to fight you anymore. You've done it for them. So what does a Stoic do? They don't flinch. They don't respond with fire. They respond with silence. Because the Stoic knows you don't win by reacting. You win by refusing to be pulled into the theater. Marcus said it best. You don't need an opinion on every offense. You don't need to attend every argument. You don't need to defend yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Emotional discipline is revolutionary. It makes your enemies look foolish. It makes their tactics boring. And most importantly, it keeps you intact. Because when they try to bait you into emotional collapse, they're not just trying to win. They're trying to frame you, to script your downfall with your own lines. And here's where you must listen closely. You don't owe anyone a reaction. You don't owe anyone a breakdown. And silence, strategic, calm, unmoved silence, is not weakness. It's mastery. This is when Stoicism becomes not a philosophy, but a shield, a survival tool, when chaos rages around you and you remain still, observing, untouched. And now, if this message is resonating, if you've ever felt this happening to you, I need you to stop and do one thing. If you haven't yet, subscribe, because this channel isn't about surface-level motivation. It's about waking up to what's real. It's about seeing the game behind the curtain. And it's about taking back control with ancient truth, with modern clarity, and with your mind unshaken. So if you're tired of being baited, tired of being manipulated, tired of reacting to people who don't deserve your energy, then subscribe, because here we teach silence as strategy, we teach pain as data, and we teach power, real power, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that doesn't need to prove, the kind that cannot be baited. You're not weak for walking away. You're wise. You're not cold for not clapping back. You're composed, and you're not passive for staying silent. You're dangerously aware. So when they try to provoke you, smile, watch, remain still, because in that stillness, you are untouchable. Sign number 4 is where many people fall. But this is where you rise. Because if they want you to destroy yourself, you give them nothing. Not your energy, not your breakdown, not your voice. Nothing. And what you withhold becomes your greatest weapon. And now, we enter darker territory. Because if provoking you doesn't work, they go after what you love, your credibility, your security, your foundation. Sign number 5 is next. Sign number 5. They use others to do their dirty work. By now, you've seen the whispers, the imitation, the provocation, but the most dangerous attacks aren't always direct. Because when you won't react, when you stay silent, they try another method. They bring in others. Sign number 5. They use others to do their dirty work. See, direct confrontation requires courage, but destruction is often outsourced. They don't want to be the villain, so they hide behind messengers. It's called triangulation. It's manipulation. With a smile, they twist your story in private, then sit back while others deliver the blow. They say things like, "I'm not saying this, but someone else is," or, "I heard people are starting to feel like you're not a team player." Notice the shift. They don't own the words. They leak them. They infect the room with doubt, without ever being caught holding the syringe. It's passive, it's covert, and it's devastating. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't let others control your mind." But what if the attack is coming from someone else's mouth, fueled by a shadow you can't see? Let me give you a real example. In 2005, a mid-level manager at a prominent media agency, let's call her Maya, began noticing strange behavior. Her team grew cold. Meeting invites stopped. Her input was quietly ignored. Until one day, a younger colleague nervously told her the truth. Their supervisor had been making side comments, painting Maya as arrogant, difficult, not a team player, nothing official, just enough to plant the seed. When Maya confronted the supervisor directly, they smiled, acted confused. "Of course not, I think you're great." But the damage had already spread. Maya hadn't failed. She'd been framed through other people. This is how manipulators operate. They shape your downfall using borrowed hands, so when the wreckage hits, they can shrug and say, "Wasn't me." This isn't just conflict. This is cowardice. They get to poison the room while looking clean. They trigger your collapse without raising their voice. And if you call them out, they call you paranoid. So what does a Stoic do when others are being weaponized against them? The Stoic doesn't respond to every echo. The Stoic responds only to truth. Marcus Aurelius said it again and again. What people say is out of your control. What you believe, that's yours. When lies surround you, silence isn't submission. It's precision. It's waiting, observing, measuring every move with logic, not ego. You don't need to chase down every rumor. You don't need to plead your case in every room, because your actions, your consistency, are your loudest witness. And here's what most people miss. When someone uses others to attack you, they're telling you who they really are. They're too weak to confront you directly, too insecure to speak their truth face to face. So they hide behind the crowd. They need volume, because they lack value. Let them gather others. Let them rally shadows. You don't have to swing at ghosts. You don't have to answer to a mob created by one insecure voice. Because here's what always happens. Truth survives. It may take time, but lies unravel. Whispers fade. And the same people who turned away, they start asking questions. They start wondering why someone who's always calm, always consistent, always grounded, is being described as dangerous. And when the story stops adding up, the truth rises. So how do you survive this phase? With stillness, with strategy, with reason. Don't panic, don't beg, don't retaliate. Your job isn't to manage everyone's perception. Your job is to stay rooted in integrity and let your character be the filter. You don't clear your name by reacting. You clear it by living in a way that makes the lies look ridiculous. And yes, it's hard, it's lonely, watching others believe the performance. But when the lights come on and the mask falls, everyone sees who was really pulling the strings. So remember, when they use others to do their dirty work, they're already admitting defeat. Because if they could win with truth, they wouldn't need an army of lies. Don't let their noise control your mind. Let your reason be your armor, your silence, your strategy, and your actions the final word. Because next, we go into sign number 6, and this one gets personal. They stop aiming at your reputation and start aiming at your identity. Sign number 6. They feed on your failures silently. You stumble, they smile. You fall, they post a quote about karma. You thought they were just distant. You thought maybe they had moved on. But then your failure arrives and they suddenly become interested again. Interested in your sadness, in your setbacks, in your suffering. Sign number 6. They feed on your failures silently. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." But some people, they're not afraid of death. They're afraid of you truly living. And when you rise, they shrink, so they wait, they watch. And when you fall, they feel whole again. But they won't say it, not out loud. No, they'll text you, "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that." They'll leave a comment, sending prayers, but their heart is beating faster. Their smirk is hidden just out of frame. You feel it. Something's off. It's not empathy, it's appetite. These people don't want to see you lose because they hate you. They want you to lose because you winning makes them feel like they don't exist. Let me give you a real story, a quiet one, the kind that plays out every day. In 2018, an entrepreneur named Darius lost his company. A bad investment, cash flow collapse. He went public about it, owning the loss with humility. Most people offered kind words, support. But one person, someone Darius had once mentored, did something else. They posted a vague tweet, "Be careful who you take advice from. Not everyone's a winner." Then liked every comment about karma and overconfidence. Never tagged him, never said his name, but everyone knew. Darius later learned this same person had been telling clients, "You don't want to be like him." Suddenly his failure became someone else's marketing strategy. And this is what silent predators do. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in the spectacle of your pain. They're opportunists. Your suffering gives them a sense of superiority they could never earn. And here's the dark part. They'll pretend to care. They'll pretend to root for you. But when something goes wrong, they show up first, not to help, but to watch. They thrive in your ruins. They laugh where no one can hear. They cheer in the dark, and they hide behind phrases like, "I was just concerned," or "I always had a feeling something wasn't right." So how does a Stoic respond to this kind of quiet cruelty? You don't beg for their applause. You don't chase their pity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't hanker after what people say about you. Don't regard what someone else does as your concern. This is your shield." A Stoic remains indifferent to both shame and praise, because both are illusions. The moment your value is tied to public perception, you've given your power away. If they cheer your downfall, let them. If they toast behind your back, let them. You weren't climbing for them, you weren't building for them, and when you fall, you rise again without announcing it. Because the people who feast on your failure always starve in your silence. When you say nothing, when you don't explain, don't defend, don't react, you starve their appetite. You take away what they crave most: attention, validation, proof they matter. You are not here to manage their envy, you are here to master yourself. You can grieve your losses quietly, you can rebuild in the shadows, you can return stronger, calmer, and unrecognizable to the people who once celebrated your collapse. And when you do, they won't cheer. They'll vanish. So remember, when they feed on your failures, they're telling you who they are. Don't respond. Don't perform. Don't descend to remind them you're still alive. Live in a way that makes their celebration of your failure feel like the last desperate breath of someone who never had a real identity to begin with. Now, what happens when they've tried everything and they still can't erase you? They turn to the final play. They attack your future. Sign number 7. They try to sabotage your future opportunities. Some people won't challenge your skills, they won't insult your intelligence, they won't even attack your past. They go straight for the core. They attack your future, your purpose. Sign number 7. They attack your mission because they can't imagine ever having one of their own. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that's exactly what they hate about you. You have direction, conviction, a reason to get up when life beats you down. You're not perfect, but you're anchored. You know where you're going. And for someone drifting, someone whose identity depends on applause, comparison, gossip, or control, your clarity feels like violence. So they do what cowards do. They don't attack your body. They attack your reason for breathing. They mock your dreams. They downplay your ambitions. They call your mission a phase, a fantasy, or a lie. They say, "You think you're better than everyone? So what? Now you're a philosopher. What are you even trying to prove?" They want you to flinch, to stop and say, maybe they're right, to trade forward motion for self-doubt. And the moment you pause, they win. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them, and your opinion of your purpose is your fortress." When they attack your mission, what they're really trying to do is make you question your right to exist with intention. They don't just want you lost, they want you to lose faith in your own compass. And they'll do it quietly. They'll sigh when you talk about your goals. They'll look bored when you share good news. They'll change the subject when you speak about meaning. Or worse, they'll pretend to support you, only to plant doubt in the subtext. "I just don't want you to be disappointed. That's a tough industry. You know, it's okay to just be normal." They'll disguise their daggers as advice, and if you're not careful, you'll bleed before you even realize you've been cut. So what does a Stoic do when someone tries to poison the very thing that makes life worth living? You get quiet. You protect your why like sacred fire. You don't argue. You don't seek permission. You don't ask them to believe in you. Because your mission is not a debate, it's a decision. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That's your shield. Your silence becomes thunder when your results speak for you." Your job is not to prove your path to people who never left the sidewalk. Your job is to walk it. They want to rattle you, but purpose, true purpose, doesn't flinch. It sits quietly, even when mocked, even when ignored, even when labeled as delusional. Because here's the truth. Most people aren't afraid you'll fail. They're afraid you won't. Because if you succeed, you become living proof that discipline matters, that solitude is strength, that a quiet life with conviction is more powerful than noise and applause. You prove that peace is earned, not inherited. And to them, that is unforgivable. So protect your purpose, not with arguments, but with action. You don't owe anyone an explanation for the fire in your chest. Because in the end, your purpose isn't just your path, it's your armor. And the people trying to destroy it, they're not your enemies, they're just shadows, threatened by the light they'll never carry. Now, you've seen the signs, you've felt the knives, so what happens next? How do you become unshakable when destruction circles your life like a wolf at night? The Stoic code for psychological warfare. You've seen the signs, but the question remains, why? Why would someone go out of their way not just to hate you, but to undo you? The answer lies in a fractured kind of mind, not always evil, sometimes just empty. There are three main types: the narcissist, the sociopath, and the bitter soul. The narcissist. They need to be the center of the room, of the praise, of the pain. Your existence, your wins, your peace, feels like a spotlight on their lack. So they scheme, sabotage, they smile wide and swing knives behind your back. Because if people love you, who's left to applaud them? The sociopath. The sociopath isn't insecure. They're empty. Emotion doesn't guide them, control does. They attack not because they're jealous, but because you're a puzzle to solve, a game to dominate, a quiet power to break. And the more unfazed you are, the more curious they become. To them, this is sport. You're a canvas for their chaos. The bitter soul. And then there's the most common one, the bitter. They're not evil, just exhausted, worn down by their own unlived life. They see your purpose, your growth, your stillness, and it reminds them of every dream they never chased. They don't know why they hate you, but it grows every time you move forward. So they lash out, but never directly. They gossip, they twist, they joke that you've changed. They wear bitterness like perfume and hope it stains everyone near. You ever seen crabs in a bucket? One tries to climb out, and the others pull it back down. Not out of malice, out of instinct, because if they can't escape, no one should. That's how these people live. If you shine, you expose their shadow. So they drag and claw, not because you harmed them, but because you dared to be free. This isn't just hate, it's identity preservation. They're not protecting themselves from you. They're protecting their self-image from collapse. Because if you succeed, they have no excuse. If you rise above betrayal, then victimhood isn't a home they can live in anymore. So the only solution to them is to destroy you. But here's the twist. You don't need to fight them, you just need to see them. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality, and the moment you understand their mind, the illusion breaks. Their power dissolves, because what once looked like war is really just fear wearing a clever mask. And when you see that clearly, you can move to the final phase, not just spotting enemies, but becoming indestructible in the face of them." How to protect yourself. You've spotted them, the ones who smile when you fail, the ones who clap when you fall. You've seen the signs. You know now, it's not just hate. It's a slow, surgical attack on your identity. And you might ask, what now? Simple. You armor up, but not with fists, not with rage, with discipline. This is what they fear the most. That you will not break, that you'll respond with silence, not chaos, that while they obsess over your downfall, you stay focused. 1. The ritual of discipline. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, and still he woke up early to write his thoughts. Not to publish, not for anyone else, but to fight his own ego before the world touched him. That's your first shield, ritual. Every morning, before the drama, before the betrayal, you train. You journal, you prepare your mind, you don't scroll, you steal. Because your enemies, they wake up searching for gossip. You wake up building mental armor. 2. Starve their power, kill the need for praise. They can't destroy you if you stop needing to be liked. Seneca said, "How long will you wait for someone else to approve of you?" And that's what Stoicism trains into your bones, the terrifying but liberating truth. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You don't need a tribe to clap when you walk in. Because the moment you let go of being admired, you become immune to being manipulated. Think about it. How many people crumble under a single comment? One tweet ruins their week. One fake friend derails their vision. That's not hate, that's access, and you gave it to them. The Stoic way: close the door. Be good with being misunderstood. Be calm when they mock you, because your value is internal, not public. 3. Weaponize expectation. Negative visualization. Here's a Stoic weapon nobody talks about. You imagine the worst every single day. Marcus Aurelius called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of bad things. You imagine your closest friend turning on you, your boss smearing your name, your family doubting you. Not because you're paranoid, but because you're ready. So when it happens, you're not broken, you're prepared. You've seen this battlefield before in your mind. And when they try to blindside you, you've already stood in that storm, calm, stoic, untouchable. 4. Study the masters relentlessly. This isn't theory. The Stoics lived this. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plagues, betrayals, assassination attempts. Seneca wrote his best letters while in exile. Musonius Rufus was imprisoned multiple times, and yet he still taught, still stood tall. They didn't tweet. They didn't rage online. They wrote. They built resilience so deeply that not even death threats could move them. That's what you do now. You study them. You become them, not to seem wise, but to survive intact. Because this is how you protect yourself, not with revenge, not with noise, with a calm so terrifying they don't know if you're broken or just built differently. That's Stoic armor. It doesn't shine, it doesn't roar, but it doesn't crack. And when the day comes, when they try again to sabotage your name, turn your circle, mock your mission, you'll smile once and keep walking, because your peace is the one thing they cannot touch. Real-world examples, stories. History doesn't whisper warnings, it screams them. And yet most people still walk blind. Julius Caesar, the knife you didn't see coming. He thought he was surrounded by allies. Rome's beloved general, the man who reshaped the Republic. But Caesar didn't fall on a battlefield. He didn't die facing the enemy. He was stabbed 23 times in the heart of the Senate by his closest friends, his advisors, his own protege, Brutus. It wasn't a random killing, it was a strategy, a fear of his power, an orchestrated takedown disguised as patriotism. But what broke Caesar wasn't the blades, it was the betrayal. Et tu, Brute? Even you? That was the real death blow. The office assassin, a modern example. Now, you're not Caesar, you don't wear a toga, but you may have your own Senate. Your workplace, your circle, your so-called friends. I once spoke to a man, let's call him Darren, quiet, hard-working. He built a reputation over a decade. Then came Sam, charming, new. Behind closed doors, Sam started whispering, Darren's slipping. He's toxic. We should look at fresh leadership. The company didn't question it. Why would they? Sam smiled in public. By the time Darren noticed, his team didn't return his calls. He was excluded from meetings, and eventually they let him go, without explanation. Months later, Sam got his job. Was it legal? Yes. Was it ethical? Absolutely not. Was it destructive? Without a doubt. And Darren? He didn't fight. He walked and started his own firm. 3 years later, Sam's division collapsed. Darren now mentors those trying to survive toxic work environments. Social media sabotage, Gen Z's invisible knife. Not all betrayal is face-to-face. Sometimes it's digital. Imagine this. A 17-year-old girl, let's call her Maya, smart, driven, runs a mental health blog for teens. She gains traction. Thousands follow. She becomes the voice for her peers. Until, one day, An anonymous account posts a fake screenshot, claims Maya mocked someone's trauma. No proof, no context, just rage. Within hours, she's trending negatively. Hashtags, boycotts, even death threats. Her sponsors pull out. Friends vanish. Supporters fall silent. She spirals into depression. But she doesn't disappear. She pulls back, reads, heals, trains. A year later, she returns with a single post. Truth needs no defense. It only needs time. Her audience returns, wiser, stronger, the fake account exposed. Maya now teaches online creators how to protect themselves from character assassins. The Stoic kid versus the school bully. And then there's the everyday battlefield, school. There was a boy, quiet, bookish, introverted. His name was Elijah. He loved philosophy, listened more than he spoke. He became a target for a loud, insecure bully, ridicule in the cafeteria, mocking in class, even fake rumors about his family. But Elijah didn't react, he wrote. He documented every taunt, every insult, every moment, not to expose, to understand. By graduation, Elijah had built a project called Stoic Kids, a free emotional resilience app for teens. His former bully? Unemployed, lost, bitter. Elijah? He now speaks at schools across the country. Caesar, Darren, Maya, Elijah. Different times, same tactic. Sabotage never announces itself. It whispers. It mimics concern. And when it strikes, it hopes you'll shatter. But the Stoics, they expect the blade, and they never bow to it. This is your wake-up call. Destruction isn't loud. It's patient. And it's personal. Your job is to spot it, not with paranoia, but with wisdom. Some enemies don't wear masks. They wear smiles. They offer handshakes soaked in poison. They hug you with one arm while the other sharpens a knife. But a Stoic doesn't just see the blade. He doesn't panic. He doesn't beg. He doesn't become like them. He watches. He understands. He sharpens himself. Because some wars are fought without a single word and still leave scars. If this video opened your eyes, share it, not just for you, but for the people you love who are still being sabotaged in silence. If you've ever had your peace attacked, your name dragged, your purpose mocked, type in the comments, "I see them now." Let them know they're not invisible anymore. And if you're done being blind to war in disguise, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss the signal again. We're building an army here, not of violence, but of wisdom, discipline, and dangerous calm. Stay awake, stay dangerous, and remember, the Stoic never flinches.